Imagine the unimaginable, a ship, solitary, in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Its torn sails flutter in the wind, but there's no one at the helm, not a cry, not a soul, just the deafening silence of the waves and the whisper of the wind, carrying with it the weight of an unfathomable mystery. This is the story of the Mary Celeste, a name that still sends shivers down humanity's spine today. A ghost ship, yes, but above all, the tomb of a truth never revealed, that of 10 lives vanished without a trace. Let's start with the most dramatic: foul play. The first idea that often comes to mind is piracy. The area between the Azores and Europe was known to have pirates even in the late 19th century. Could a band of pirates have boarded the ship, murdered everyone, and thrown their bodies overboard? It's possible, but highly unlikely. Pirates are typically after loot. Why would they leave behind the crew's money, the captain's valuables, and valuable cargo of alcohol? Furthermore, there were no signs of a fight, no bloodstains, no broken furniture, no evidence of a struggle. The ship was found in an orderly, albeit deserted state. This theory just doesn't align with the evidence. Another foul play theory points fingers at the crew of the Dei Gratia, the ones who found the ship. The motive? Salvage rights. The crew of the Dei Gratia did indeed tow the Mary Celeste to Gibraltar. At the salvage hearings, the Attorney General, Frederick Solly Flood, was highly suspicious. He believed the Dei Gratia crew had killed everyone on the Mary Celeste to claim the prize. However, scientific analysis proved the stains were just rust. There was absolutely no evidence to support this claim, and the crew of the Dei Gratia had a stellar reputation. Plus, Captain Morehouse and Captain Briggs were friends. It seems unthinkable that he would orchestrate such a gruesome crime for money. Ultimately, the court awarded the Dei Gratia crew a salvage payment, but it was much lower than expected. What about mutiny? Could the crew have risen up against Captain Briggs? Again, this seems improbable. Captain Briggs was known as a fair and reasonable commander. The crew was small and hand-picked. A mutiny violent enough to result in 10 deaths would have surely left signs. And if the crew took over the ship, where did they go? Why abandon a perfectly good vessel? The crew's belongings and wages due to them were all left behind. This theory creates more questions than it answers. So if human hands weren't responsible, maybe nature was. This brings us to the theories involving natural phenomena. One popular idea is a rogue wave. A massive, unexpected wave could have crashed over the ship, washing everyone on deck overboard. Or perhaps it caused so much damage and flooding that the crew abandoned it. This could explain the water in the hold and the general wetness of the ship. However, a wave large enough to sweep away 10 people would likely have caused far more significant structural damage. The galley was in order, personal items were undisturbed, and the ship itself was still seaworthy. It seems unlikely that a single wave could be so selective in its destruction. Another natural disaster theory involves a waterspout or a sudden, violent storm. A powerful storm could have damaged the rigging and prompted the crew to abandon ship. This aligns with the tattered sails. But the ship's log mentioned calm weather on its last recorded day. While weather in the Atlantic can change in an instant, the general state of the ship's interior doesn't point to a catastrophic event. The hatch to the hold was open, something a careful crew would have secured in a storm. This leads us to one of the most compelling and scientifically plausible theories: an alcohol vapor explosion. Remember the cargo? 1701 barrels of raw industrial alcohol. The 9 empty barrels were made of red oak, which is more porous than the white oak used for the other barrels. It's theorized that alcohol fumes from these barrels could have leaked and accumulated in the hold. Perhaps a change in atmospheric pressure or a small spark caused a dramatic, but not destructive, explosion. Imagine this: a loud roar and a burst of flame shoots out of the cargo hold, blowing the hatch cover off. The crew, fearing the entire ship is about to go up in a massive fireball, makes a split-second decision. They panic. Captain Briggs, a man of faith and experience, is faced with an impossible choice. He orders everyone into the lifeboat, perhaps intending to tow behind the Mary Celeste at a safe distance. He might have tied the lifeboat to the main ship with a long tow line, but then a sudden gust of wind could have snapped the line, or the ship outpaced the small boat. Can you feel the terror, the desperate hope turning to despair as they watch their only refuge sail away, carrying their fate into the vast, indifferent ocean? Once separated, the family and crew would be left stranded. This theory neatly explains several key pieces of the puzzle. It accounts for the missing lifeboat, the reason for the hasty abandonment, and the lack of major damage to the ship. A vapor explosion would be terrifying, but could leave little physical evidence behind. The 9 empty barrels support this idea. In 2006, a German historian and scientists conducted an experiment. They recreated the conditions in the hold of the Mary Celeste and successfully generated a pressure wave explosion. It blew the hatch doors open with great force, just as the theory suggests. For many, this is the most logical explanation. But, as with any great mystery, there are always more unusual theories. One involves poisoning from contaminated food. Ergot, a fungus that can grow on rye bread, can cause hallucinations and erratic behavior. Could the crew have been driven mad by contaminated flour, leading them to jump overboard in a state of delirium? It's a fascinating thought, but there's no direct evidence. The ship's food supply was found to be in good order. Then there are the more far-fetched ideas: sea monsters, giant squid attacks. While the ocean depths hold many secrets, there's zero evidence to support a mythical beast being responsible. And of course, in the world of unsolved mysteries, you can't escape the theory of alien abduction. Could a UFO have simply lifted the 10 inhabitants off the deck of the ship? It's a fun idea for a movie. One of the most bizarre and intriguing side stories comes from Arthur Conan Doyle, creator of Sherlock Holmes. Before he became famous for his detective stories, he wrote a short story titled J. Habakkuk Jeffson's Statement. It was a fictionalized account of a ship called the Marie Celeste, where a vengeful ex-slave leads a mutiny. The story was so popular and convincingly written that many people mistook it for a factual account. This piece of fiction is largely responsible for many of the myths that still surround the case today, like the idea that the tables were set for a meal that was never eaten, or that the tea was still warm. None of that was true. Doyle's story added a thick layer of sensationalism that has been hard to peel back. So where does that leave us? We have a ship found in good condition, a valuable cargo mostly untouched, and 10 people who vanished into thin air. The theories range from the plausible to the preposterous. The alcohol vapor explosion theory seems to be the front-runner among serious investigators. It explains the crew's panicked decision to abandon a perfectly seaworthy ship without taking any belongings. The fear of an imminent, massive explosion would override all other rational thought. But it's not a perfect theory. We can't know for sure. There was no distress signal, no final note, no clue. Imagine the deafening silence of the ocean, the void left by these souls, and the weight of uncertainty. What we do know is that on a fateful day in late November 1872, something happened on the Mary Celeste that caused a seasoned captain, his family, and his experienced crew to get into a small lifeboat. They were never seen or heard from again. The story of the Mary Celeste has become more than just a historical event. It's become a legend, a modern myth. It represents the ultimate fear of the unknown, the terrifying power of the sea, and the chilling idea that people can simply disappear without a trace. The ship itself had a long career after its discovery. It was sailed for another 12 years under different owners before its last captain deliberately wrecked it off Haiti in an attempt at insurance fraud. It seems the ship's unlucky streak followed it to the very end. The enduring power of this mystery lies in its emptiness. There are no bodies, no culprits, no definitive answers. All we have is a ghost ship found sailing silently on the waves, holding its secrets close. It forces us to use our imagination to fill in the blanks, to become detectives ourselves, sifting through the evidence and trying to piece together the final moments of the Briggs family and their crew. Was it an act of God, an accident of science, or something else entirely? Perhaps we'll never know for sure. And maybe, just maybe, that's why the story continues to haunt and fascinate us. Over 150 years later, it remains the sea's greatest, most perfect mystery. What do you think happened on board the Mary Celeste? Do you favor the explosion theory, or do you have another idea? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. Thanks so much for watching and joining me on this journey into the unknown. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more deep dives into history's greatest mysteries. See you next time.